Well, hello, hello, hello. Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. Let's get back to basics on this math, please. If you'd like to download this PDF file, this handout, and go over it and try it on your own and then come back and see what the answers are, feel free to do that. Throw us a like, right? Go ahead and subscribe, and every time we get a video up here, we'll make sure you get that content. All right, let's dig in. I have plus 20, and I'm adding to that negative 22. So what I notice is that I have 10 positives and 22 negatives. So when I combine them, I have 12 more negatives and positives. Remember, when you're combining constants, like adding or subtracting, then you really want to just think about whether the numbers are the same sign or opposite signs. If they're the same sign, you just add them up and put the common sign in front. If they're opposite signs, like in this situation, a positive and a negative, then you take the difference, and the one that has the largest quantity, that's what goes in the front. All right, this is multiplication. A positive times a negative is a negative, and 4 times 7 is 28. This is division. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 54 divided by 9 is 6. Here's that situation I was talking about earlier. You have 4 negatives and then 13 negatives. So notice you're just combining a bunch of negatives. So you have now 17 negatives. This is a base raised to a power. The base is 7, and the power is 2. We also call that an exponent. This means you take the base and multiply it by itself exponent times, like that. The negative does not go with the power, because only what is directly below it does. So the negative goes out in front, and then you apply the power to the base of 3 only. 3 times 3 is 9, and that negative stays out in front. Notice in this case, what's below the parenthesis, what's below the exponent is the parenthesis. So you're multiplying everything in the parenthesis together 5 times. Notice how the negative travels with it this time. So see the difference between these two, right? No parentheses, parentheses. Negative 4 times negative negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Times negative 2 is negative 8. Times negative 2 is 16. Times negative 2 is negative 32. Let's go. All right, this is order of operations. When you do order of operations, I like to look at it as terms. Terms are separated by addition, subtraction, and the equal symbol. So, this is a term, this is a term, and this is a term. So I'm going to simplify my 3 terms. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. Minus minus makes a plus, and now I got 24 divided by 8. That's a positive 3. Now I'm going to add all these up. Negative 12 plus 7, that's negative 5. I have more negatives and positives. And then I have negative 5 plus 3. That's going to give me a negative 2 because I have 2 more negatives and positives. Final answer. Let's go. All right, on this one right here, I'm going to simplify the numerator, then the denominator, and this. And the last thing I do is add them up. This is a grouping symbol. That means that I need to simplify everything above and below it before I can apply it. That fraction bar has an operation attached to it. It's called division. So you got negative 6 times 5. Negative 6 times 5 is negative 30 plus 18 divided by 6. But 18 divided by 3 is 6. I did the math so fast that I did it in my head and said it. Negative 30 plus 6. Take 6 of those positives away from that. You're left with negative 24. That is the numerator. The denominator is 8 minus 11. 8 minus 11 goes past 0 into the negatives. So that's negative 3 plus 6 squared. 6 squared is 36. That is a negative divided by a negative. That's positive 8 plus 36. Add them up. You get fofo. Fofo. All right, identify the base for the following, kiddos. Remember, when we're dealing with exponent form or exponential form, we have a base and we have an exponent. So identify the base. The base is h. The exponent would be 9. If I want to rewrite this in exponential form, remember exponents mean repeated multiplication. So the thing that's being repeated is the base, that's j. The number of times you're multiplying j together is the exponent. You done. This is combining like terms. This is organizing everything. This is important. This will never go away. The category there is x, so I can add up how many I have. The category there is y, so I can add up how many I have there. And then the category here are called constants, because there is no category. So this has an imaginary 1 in front. So 4 plus 1 is 5. What did I add up? What was my category? X, correct. Good job. So that's 5x. That minus goes with that 7. That's why I highlighted it. It goes with it. Some of you drop that and you do 7 plus 4 and call it 11. That's not true. It's minus 7 plus 4. Minus 7 plus 4 gives you minus 3, and the category is y. Now I have 2 negatives and 7 negatives. This means I owe you $2, and this means I owe you 7 more dollars. How many dollars I owe you? I owe you $9. All right? Now, that x is not the same category as that y, is not the same category as that constant. So I cannot combine those. My final answer should be in alphabetical order. X comes before y in the alphabet, and notice the constant always goes last. All right, good job. Let's go to the next page. We're going to combine like terms again. Let's look for our h squareds. Let's look for our h squareds. There's h squared. There's h squared. Squared is a way of saying exponent of 2. Another name for exponent of 2 is squared. All right, now let's go ahead and look at these h's. Right here and right here. And then the last thing I'm going to look at are the constant terms. Boom. Again, notice how I take that operation that's in front with it. I always highlight the operation that's in front with it. They travel together. Let's do 3 plus 8. 3 plus 8 is 11. That is like a negative 1. So 11 minus 1 is 10. H squared. Now I have negative 6 plus 11. Do I have more positives or more negatives? That's right, I have more positives. I have 5 more positives. Very good. So that's plus 5, and the category is H. Pardon me, these are my constants. Positive 2, negative 9. More positives or more negatives? Which one is the greater quantity? That is a greater quantity of negatives. So I take 2 of those positives away from those 9 negatives, and I'm left with 7 negatives. Now notice H is the only variable here, but we got exponents. So when we write this answer, it must be in descending order. So the exponents decrease from left to right, like so. In this problem, we have variables and exponents we have to deal with, so let's deal with it. I got my A's. There's 5 of them there. There's 1 of them there. No more A's. I got my B's. There's B's there. There's B's there. I got my B squareds. They're right here. And then the last thing I have are my constants. So I have 4 different categories here. 4 different categories. All right, let's start with our A's. 5A plus, how many A's are here? That's right, that's right. There's 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. And the category is A. Those are done. Now I'm going to go to my B's. I have positive 3 minus 9. So do I have more negatives or more positives? That's right, I have more negatives. So how many more? So take 3 of those away from that. Yep, 6. Category is B. Good job. All right, now I'm going to talk about my constants. Negative 14 plus 12. Negative 14 plus 12, there's more negatives than positives. Boom. And then my last term is the only term that has a b squared. Okay, now, we have a lot going on. We have alphabetical and descending order. Alphabetical takes precedence. So that means A comes first. In the alphabet, A comes before B. A, B, C, D, E, there it is. So 6A. All right, now I got my B's and my B squareds. All right, this I'm going to say is going to be my next term because the exponent of 2 is bigger than the exponent of 1. When there is no exponent, it's a 1. So it's minus 7b squared. Now my b term. And then the constant always goes last. Woo, let's go. This is one of my favorite properties. It's called distribution. Notice that number right next to the parenthesis. That means multiplication. So negative 4 times m, negative 4 times negative 6. The number in front of m is 1. So negative 4 times 1, m. Negative times a negative is a positive. 4 times 6 is 24. These are not like terms. That's a category of m. That doesn't have a category. Make sure you're in proper form so the variable term comes first. Number 16, we have distribution and combining like terms. So always start with your multiplication. Order of operations tells us to do so. 7 times 2, 7 times 1, plus 24 plus 8x. I knew the distribution ended because the parenthesis ended. All right, now I'm going to combine terms that like. Notice right here, you have 14x and plus 8x. And then right here, you have positive 7 and positive 24. Let's add up our x's first. 14 and 8 is 22. X, 7 plus 24 is 31. That is the proper order. We're done. This one is tricky. Notice what you're distributing is the negative. You are not distributing the negative 9. So that just comes down. There's an imaginary 1 there. So negative 1 times positive 15, negative times a positive is a negative. Negative times a negative, because I got to distribute that to that, not minus 4 as well, is a positive 4, plus 7, 8. All right, now I'm going to combine my like terms. Notice these constants are like, and notice these variable terms, A, are also like. So negative 9 plus 4, more negatives than positives, so that's negative 5. And now I have negative 15 plus 7, more negatives than positives, negative 8. Order matters. The variable term must come first. Boom. All right, this is evaluate. Notice directions. So simplify means you perform the order of operations. Evaluate means you got to substitute values in. So I'm going to have to substitute these values into the variable expression. That is a variable expression because it's addition and subtraction with no equal symbol, and it's variables. So I'm going to substitute in negative 3 for P, P, and P. That's a lot of P. And then I'm going to substitute in my value for S. Notice that exponent of 2. So when I substitute in, and there's an exponent, I got to put what I'm substituting in parentheses. And then I square all of that. The next thing I see is a minus. And then again, I'm going to use parentheses. It's a good habit. When you substitute in, use parentheses. PS means P times S, like so. Now I'm going to go through and simplify. I'm going to look at all my terms. There's a term, there's a term, and there's a term. They're separated by addition and subtraction. Simplify your terms. Negative 3 in parentheses squared. That's negative 3 times negative 3. And that's a positive 9. Negative negative makes a positive, right, chap? And then negative 3 times 5 is plus a negative 15. Or minus 15. That would work as well. 9 plus 3 is a whole lot of 12. Plus negative 15 is negative 3. The coefficient is the count. That's how many you have, right? If I have a bag of M&Ms and there's 64 M&Ms in a bag, then my coefficient is 64. If I have 3 water balloons, then my coefficient is 3. The category is water balloons. So here, my coefficient is the negative 16. That's how many I have. The category is X, Y, Z. Because notice they're all being multiplied together. But my coefficient, how many X, Y, Z's do I have? I have negative 16 of them. Is 15 plus 7 the same as 15 plus 7? What? I think that should say 7 plus 15. I will change that. So when you get your PDF handout, when you download that and print it out for your class or your child or for you, then I will already have that changed. 15 plus 7 is 22. 7 plus 15 is also 22. Okay? So yes, they're the same. When you add a negative and a negative number together, does it result in negative or positive? Well, let's try it. I'm going to take negative 2 plus, because they told me I was adding a negative number, like negative 7. Well, negative 2 plus negative 7 is negative 9. So when you add two negatives, the answer is always negative. All right, stay strong, stay positive, and do the best you can always. It's been great being here with you. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification. Let's get this done. All right, be good. Bye.